things that people struggle with is their thoughts. Uh, they're overthinking things, and people lose themselves because they're lost in their thoughts and they're lost in their mind.
Mm,
So when someone's discovering themselves, it's really about peeling back the onion layers of who they thought they were. And usually, why we have such a big problem with anxiety, depression, mental health issues these days is because people have access to so much information and so many conflicting viewpoints about what's good and what they should do and who they should be and what's right and what's wrong. And we get all of these like implanted values about like who we are and who we should be. And oftentimes it's coming from our parents, it's coming from society, it could be coming from the workplace, our career, it could be business, could be our relationship. We're just getting bombarded with information about who we should be, and then if we're very like entangled with our thoughts, like we're very close to our thoughts and like our thoughts are almost running the show, we can find it very hard to have any clarity about like who actually am I and what do I actually want in my life.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the High Performance Management Podcast, episode 23. Today I'm here joined with Josh Holliday, founder of MindLaunch, no bullshit meditation teacher, healing anxiety in high performers, something I'm sure all us high performers, which is most of the guys listening to this, or girls, have dealt with in the past. That constant need for striving, but that feeling of not enough. That's the fine balance. So I'm sure we've got lots to dive into in this conversation. So thank you so much, Josh, for coming on. How's things been? What are we up to?
Yeah, no, thanks for having me, Corey. I'm excited to dive in and have a conversation with you. I know we've been exchanging messages for probably nearly a couple of years now, just back and forth here
Yeah.
and there. So no, I'm excited to talk. Yeah, what's been happening to me? Man, I'm a dad now, so I've been just managing business, family, parenthood, all that stuff. It keeps me busy, keeps me on my toes.
That's fantastic. And what one thing I think is going to be really good about this conversation is you've been in the industry for a while, unlike a few people you see pop up and you're like, this guy know what they're talking about. You know, you've been, was it since 2018? You've been on the coaching business journey. Is that right?
I started the coaching business in 2020. So,
Yeah.
but I've been practicing meditation myself since 2011. So,
Yeah.
I've had about nearly 15 years of meditation practice personally. And I started the business after I had about 10 years of meditation under my belt. So, yeah, 2020, 2021 was when I kicked off the business. And yeah, it just started with like classes. I became a meditation teacher, and then I just started running classes and workshops, and then I quickly figured out that coaching was going to be a better option for me. So that's when I went into coaching, and yeah, man, I've been doing it for like probably nearly 5 years now.
Yeah, fantastic. And obviously, meditation has its buzzwords and things like that, but I think the way you use it is in a very tactile way.
Mm,
Specifically, you obviously working with high performers and business owners.
mhm.
I'm interested that transition with you got like a high performer who might not see meditation as something that's necessary. With the guys or hundreds of guys you work with, what's kind of been the biggest two or three things that you see their meditation that's impacted like real tangible results in their business?
Yeah, people just get stuck in their thoughts a lot. And to be honest with you, Corey, I don't help guys with their businesses so much. I do help high performing people, and a lot of them are business owners and entrepreneurs or like career professionals, C level executives, that kind of stuff. However, most of the time, I'm helping them with their personal life and not
Mm,
their professional life. So the guys that I work with, usually they're pretty confident in business, or they're pretty confident in their career, but they're having some issues in their personal life. So, that can look like it's either anxiety, like this constant fear of, judgment, or,
mm,
or fear of, you know, relationship issues or fear of social issues. Um, Oftentimes, it can also just be a fear of their own mind, like they can't control their thoughts, and sometimes they think that, my mind's gonna just go crazy and I'm not gonna be able to control it. Um, yeah, obviously, a lot of these different fears, right? Sometimes it's totally just, fear of their own self and their own mind and their own thoughts. Sometimes it's fear of social situations, relationships, stuff like that. It can also be like drug and alcohol affected. So people who have been, drinking or doing drugs to suppress their emotions, and then now they're
Mm,
starting to become a bit more conscious and realize they want to change, but they're kind of like opening up a can of worms, and they're just like, oh my god, this is too much to deal with. So that's usually like more emotional reactivity, and it can be deep feelings of anger or frustration, which is usually just a cover up for like shame and guilt. So yeah,
mm.
I generally kind of speak into anxiety, but some of the guys that come to work with me have a range of different issues, and a lot of it's around emotional reactivity, right? Whether that's fear or anger or frustration or shame or guilt, it's all about their emotions. But to answer your question, like the one thing I see the most and we have the most success with in terms of like a real tangible change is taking people from that anxiety to alignment. So in this anxious state, really not feeling like themselves, not feeling like they're, confident in who they are. They're feeling quite disconnected, quite afraid of the future and of their self. And we move them into a place where they feel very confident, very aligned, very like just dialed in to who they actually want to be in life.
Mm.
So yeah, man, that's kind of a very overarching picture of what I generally see.
Yeah, no, that's good because it leads exactly to my next question, which is, yeah, the process of discovering who you are, or
Mhm.
and why is that important, and why do people find themselves not knowing who they are?
Yeah,
We spend it like every day with ourselves, so it seems counterintuitive. I'd like to
yeah,
dive into that.
yeah. So one of the biggest things that people struggle with is their thoughts. Uh, they're overthinking things, and people lose themselves because they're lost in their thoughts and they're lost in their mind.
Yeah.
So when someone's discovering themselves, it's really about peeling back the onion layers of who they thought they were. And usually, why we have such a big problem with anxiety, depression, mental health issues these days is because people have access to so much information and so many conflicting viewpoints about what's good and what they should do and who they should be and what's right and what's wrong. And we get all of these like implanted values about like who we are and who we should be. And oftentimes it's coming from our parents, it's coming from society, it could be coming from the workplace, our career, it could be business, could be our relationship. We're just getting bombarded with information about who we should be, and then if we're very like entangled with our thoughts, like we're very close to our thoughts and like our thoughts are almost running the show, we can find it very hard to have any clarity about like who actually am I and what do I actually want in my life? And we feel unclear, and we feel like we can't tell like our ass from our elbow, right? As a figure of speech.
Mm.
Like I think I should, like part of me thinks I should do all of this stuff over here, but there's another part of me that feels like I should be going in this direction. And it's like the mind is telling me to go here, my heart's telling me to go here. I'm trying to figure out what's my intuition, like which way do I actually want to go, but there's just too much noise that I just have no fucking idea what's going on. So meditation is really a tool that helps us to like clean the windscreen, right?
Mm.
Now meditation is like pretty boring to talk about, but the what meditation enables is very cool. So we want to get meditation enables us to connect with a higher level of awareness. Most people think that they are their thoughts.
Mm.
If I have a thought, that must mean that's part of me. That's what I am. But what I teach is that you're not your thoughts. And when you're able to sit in meditation and get above your thoughts, you are able to connect to this beautiful place, which is very clear and very pure. And it's just awareness. And when we connect with that place of awareness, we can really just like clean the mirror, clean the windscreen, like make a blank canvas, get rid of all of the thoughts. And when they're all kind of cleaned up, then what we're left with is our true self. And it becomes very easy for our true self to be like clear.
Yeah, right. It's interesting. I've experienced it, that sense of coming above the thoughts during meditation myself. I call it in the zone. I've
Yeah.
recently started getting back into it, and there's a point where you're kind of frustrated. Maybe not for you anymore, but
No, you hit,
myself.
yeah, yeah. You can sit down for sure. Like a couple of weeks ago, it happened. I was quite, I woke up and I was a bit like racy. I was a bit frustrated, and I was like, man, I need to sit down and chill. So I sat down for 10 minutes, did some breathing, and I hit the sweet spot. You're talking in the zone, hit the sweet spot.
Yeah.
So if you're frustrated or you're anxious or you're stressed out, when you know how to meditate properly, you can. It can take as little as 5 minutes, or it can even take less than that. Sometimes, I'm just there, but if you learn how to meditate, it's such a great tool because you can take any frustration, any anger, any stress, any anxiety. Within 5 to 10 minutes, you hit that sweet spot. You're totally calm, totally peaceful, and you're like it's a reset, and you're ready to go again. You're not carrying around this bag full of like heavy rocks of just reactive emotions and stuff like that, which that's just it's really not helpful for business. It's not helpful for decision making. It's not helpful for focus. When you have a big bag of rocks, essentially your emotions and this reactivity, and it gets really heavy and you're feeling frustrated, you're carrying around this big bag of rocks. It's no good for making decisions, for being clear, for having direction, for having focus. It just takes away from all of that. So yeah, man, in the zone, hit the sweet spot. It's definitely a very valuable like skill set to have.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I totally agree with you being in those I call them resourceful states for my clients. Because your state really dictates a lot, everything, your behaviors, actions. And I guess that kind of leads to, I'd like to have a conversation about, that when you're, what about those people that are so ingrained in their thinking, which everyone is, and probably after several years, where it's almost like their body expects it. I think Joe Dispenza talks about it really beautifully, where the body tells the mind what to think and vice versa. But when it's ingrained, you live in these identities and it's kind of stored there, and your body reminds you through physical sensation. And I guess, I just, not really a question, but more of a conversation. What have you noticed,
Yeah,
with
it's
those
like
people that
it's
have
like
kind of got
it's a feedback loop. Your brain is and your body is in this feedback loop where you're essentially, let's say you have an anxious experience, or you're just constantly getting triggered into, let's say, anger or your temper, right? So things are happening, and in your body, you're starting to feel the anger and you feel the frustration, which then triggers a certain way of thinking. That certain way of thinking triggers the body reaction, and you end up in this loop. And a lot of people will say, like, I just don't know how I got there. Like, I just, it was like I saw red, or I just went blank, and I just, and I was just in this feedback loop. And so, yeah, man, that's essentially what's happening. Our body and our brain, in our essentially our nervous system, right? Because that's the brain and the spine makes the nervous system. It's very connected, and it's essentially working in this crazy little feedback loop. So if we don't have control of our mind, I really believe it does all start with the mind. Joe Dispenza talks about changing your state, right? So changing your emotional state. But it's really a practice of becoming bigger than the current version of yourself. So if there is a current version of yourself who is like getting triggered a lot, getting angry, getting anxious, feeling panic, all these kinds of things, you've got to train yourself to become bigger than yourself, to become bigger than that version of yourself. Now, Dr. Joe, he talks a lot about, he uses words like you're experimenting with this idea, or you're playing with this idea. He doesn't really use words like discipline or training. I do use those words. I like using words like discipline and training. I think it's good for men. Like, they know how to if I say train your mind, like a man knows how to do that, right? Yeah, and I think that's what it is. Even if it's, you can use different words, you do have to retrain your mind and retrain your body into a new state.
That's very true. And I guess when we're talking about mental health, healing your emotional trauma, um, maybe societal impacts on that, lack of spiritual connection, those, ingrained thoughts and, behaviors and states, they really control people. And I believe you talk a lot about turning that from your awareness into your acceptance, because like you just said, a lot of these guys, they're already over analyzing, they're already seeing all their thoughts, they're seeing them all. You would almost say they are aware. They're maybe too aware. Let's dive into that a bit. Like, how does someone go from, just being super hyper aware? They've gone down a personal development journey. They're saying that, oh, my thoughts control my behaviors, my beliefs, but then to then start accepting that. And I think Jung calls it, individuation, when you start accepting all of these parts of you. How would someone start to go down that path?
Yeah, so everyone's conscious, right? Everyone is aware. Like, however, we've got different levels of awareness, right? So you can be aware of the experience that you're having. You can be aware of your thoughts. You can be aware of, the patterns, maybe your addictions or, whatever it is that you're experiencing. But a lot of people I work with say, I just don't know why I'm having these thoughts, or why I'm having this experience, or why I'm self-sabotaging.
Right.
Because there's different levels of awareness, right? Everyone is conscious, but we have to realize, like Jung says, right, you until you make the unconscious conscious, it directs your life and you call it fate. So you can be conscious of the conscious, right? Another way of looking at it is like someone, I don't know who it was, someone said the conscious is like essentially what you're physically experiencing. So you and me right now, we're in our rooms, we're talking to each other. I can see my laptop there. I can, feel I'm a little bit warm. It's hot up here. It's Queensland, right? It's a hot day today. So all this stuff is like, it's immediate sensation, right? So I'm aware of the immediate sensation that I'm having. But underneath that, if we dive into the psyche, there's the unconscious mind as well, right? And that unconscious mind, it kind of, we're not as aware of it, where it's unconscious, right? It's underneath the conscious, and we're not aware of it. But that is what dictates most of our life. So we need to start to get into that and understand that, and that's where it's helpful to have like different frameworks of self-reflection. So you're asking, like, how do we start to understand ourselves at deeper levels, or how do we start to become more aware of ourselves at deeper levels, or how do we accept ourselves at deeper levels, right? It takes like a deep and honest self-reflection. You have to do the work, right? You have to be able to look at yourself with a kind of humility, right? Because we're talking about spiritual connection. A big part of the spiritual journey is about humbling yourself and getting over yourself. Now, a big problem for men, and this is true for my clients, but also just general men, is that we have big pride. Like, we're proud of ourselves, right? And it's funny though, that pride can actually keep us stuck, because we don't want to admit when we're wrong, or we don't want to admit when we could be wrong, because that would be attacking onto our pride. But what we need to do, if we really want to learn how to accept ourselves, is accepting the fact that, or having the courage at least to accept that sometimes we are wrong. Sometimes there might be a better way. Right? And that's the journey of humility. Yeah.
The courage is important. I think I talk about that a lot as well. Even to commit, which will lead into very nicely commitment to yourself. You need to have clarity to be able to commit, and to commit, you need to be courageous. So yeah,
you need to know what you want, for sure.
Yeah, and I think that's goes back to even what we were saying before. So we don't know which way is our ass, which way is our head. There's so
Yeah,
much stuff everywhere. Who am I? What do I
yeah,
even
yeah.
like?
Yeah,
And
like
it's
people often they'll ask me questions like, well, I was talking to a guy the other day and he was telling me that he was, you know, he started asking me questions about business and stuff like that. And this is the guy who, he's not a business owner, he's a career professional. And I think he was just getting this shiny object syndrome. He was thinking that he wanted to start a business, but with a few questions, I was like, why are you asking about that? Do you really want to do that? And it was no. So we got to be very mindful of like, what do we actually want, versus what do we just think that we want. And this comes back to the story of like, or the conversation around knowing yourself. You got to know what you actually want first. I know for me that was a big, that was a big journey. Like in my early days of entrepreneurship, because I started trying to build a business when I was like uh, 20. So yeah, it would have been 2014, 2015. I started an e-commerce business. I started a digital marketing business. I started I've started a bunch of random businesses. None of them worked until this coaching business. But it was because I didn't know, I didn't really want to do that. I wanted to start a business and I wanted to have freedom in my life and I wanted to create that kind of lifestyle for myself, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. And everything that I started that wasn't actually aligned with what I actually want to do with my life, none of it worked. And it only was when I really figured out, okay, this is my thing. Like this is my path. This is what I really care about. This is what I really want to do. That's when it started working. So you've really got to, knowing yourself is like
Mm,
a step.
that's really good. Because I think like maybe you can even dive into it. That is self sabotage, isn't it? When you're not clear and you think you should be doing something and you're taking action because that's what you think you should be doing. You see someone doing or you've read online, or maybe parts of you like slightly integrated into that vision, but
Mm.
you haven't done the correct work. What's looking back at that? Because I think that's a massive gold nugget for anyone listening.
Yeah.
You've gone and failed businesses, but you're in something now that's successful and you know that it's aligned. So looking back, what are those telltale symptoms of not being aligned? Like you might hear someone, I don't know, if this is the right thing. That let's
Mm.
use your example. I think that's massive. Like what
Mm.
looking back, what do you see?
Yeah. It's hard to say because, to be honest with you, when I look back, I actually think that it was all necessary. I
Mm,
don't think it was necessarily self-sabotage. I think it was all necessary because I learned a lot of skills starting those businesses, but I just didn't earn a lot of money. I guess one of the ways that I knew that it wasn't for me was like I was not motivated to do it. Like I was
that's good.
doing it because I felt like I should. Like you said, I felt like I should do this, or there was a desire to do it to make a lot of money and all this kind of stuff. But that was about it. Like, there wasn't really any strong drive or motivation behind it. I didn't feel any sense of purpose in what I was doing. I was just doing it because I felt like I should. But like I said, I do. I'm grateful that I did give it a crack because I learned a lot of great lessons from doing those things.
I like that, and that kind of leads into the stuff I focus on. Performance optimization, like those key metrics. Like you literally just said, a motivation, drive. Like
Mhm.
you didn't really want to do those things.
Mm.
What is for these guys? Because you work with high performers, like it's very important that they're experiencing things like drive and motivation, or will have the ability to snap into it at a moment's time. What are some of those things that you've seen with becoming spiritually connected or knowing yourself? How have they directly linked to drive and motivation in your experience?
Mm. I think I'm not sure. I'm not sure that they have, to be honest. What I think has helped me with my drive and motivation is actually what you said before, right? Um, it's commitment and discipline. Um, Actually, in a sense of like spiritual connection, I feel a strong sense of
Mm,
purpose in my work. And so that plus like the strong sense of purpose, plus being committed to my purpose, like being like committed, like I'm actually all in, right? I've burnt the boats. I'm not doing anything else. This is what I'm doing. One of my
Mm.
mentors told me that, to commit is to decide, and to decide is to cut away all the other options, right? The Latin root of the word decide is decidere, which means to cut away. So when you make a
Mm.
decision, you cut away all other options. And when you
Yeah.
make a commitment, you're essentially making a decision. So for me, committing to this line of work that I'm in now has meant that I've cut out all other decisions. Like there's no other option. And then, you know, one of the ways that I see meditation as a game changer for me is it's helped me become disciplined. So I don't feel like meditating every day, but I do it because I am disciplined. And the root of the word discipline is disciple, right? To be a disciple of something is to learn from something. So I see my spiritual practice is something as I'm a disciple of, or I'm disciplined to, and I learn from. And so the spiritual practice is a very powerful tool to help me understand what it means to be devoted to something. So the first thing that I ever committed to, or I ever was devoted to, was my meditation practice or my spiritual practice. And since I've learned how to be devoted to that and committed to that, now it's very easy for me to be devoted to my business, to be committed to my business, to be devoted to my wife, to be committed to my wife. So my meditation practice or my spiritual practice is like a training ground for every other area of my life. And yeah, not to mention the the powerful benefits of focus and concentration that you get from meditation. Right, meditation is about concentrating your mind, like becoming still and totally clear and totally present, totally concentrated or refined. That's something that you get from meditation. It's extreme focus.
Mm.
Um, so you just have to think about, let's imagine that there's a day you're at the office, but you're feeling distracted. Something's happening in your life and relationship issues or something like that, and it's causing you to overthink, or maybe, your cash flow is tight, or, you're doing a launch or something, it's not working, or, whatever, you're having troubles with clients, refunds, stuff like that. And then you're overthinking everything and you're distracted and you can't think and you can't do anything and you're not productive because you're distracted. When you are able to develop a strong meditation practice, you're able to stay extremely focused, extremely concentrated, right, on the task at hand. Everything else can wait until later. And the meditation practice, the spiritual practice, it's like a training ground for that. That's how I see it. My little 10 minutes a day is somewhere that I train my mind to be sharp.
And that's awesome. Commitment is something that I have recently started to like really focus on. Like you said, becoming a disciple of commitment, like committing to something every day. It's like a skill almost.
Mhm.
I kind of want to touch on you. You mentioned one of the big cornerstones of identifying that you were aligned was like this. Once you did commit, and you burned the boats, you felt that strong sense of purpose.
Mhm.
One might say that you find a purpose. Did you think that you found it, or was it fostered through the commitment?
Yeah, I think
Was it
I
like a
think
paradox?
yeah, it was. I think it was always in me. I don't think I necessarily found it. My story is like the way that I got into teach. I never thought I would be a meditation teacher. Right, I started meditating in 2011 for my own mental health. Right, and I never, ever dreamed that I would be a meditation teacher. Right? Like it was not a thought at all.
Mm.
I was just doing this practice as a personal thing. For the first like 10 years, I didn't even really tell people I was doing it. Like I did it in silence and in private. It was 15 years ago now. It wasn't cool to do meditation, right? No one was doing meditation. Breath work wasn't a thing. So I felt like almost embarrassed to tell people I was doing it. So I never thought I'd be a meditation teacher. And so, started all these different online businesses trying to make things work. Nothing ever worked. And then, like, I think it's like my purpose kind of just became clear to me one day. Um, and it was my story. And I think the meditation and the spiritual connection has helped with this. It was like divine synchronicities. I don't know if you're into synchronicities or coincidences and stuff like that. But I went through a period of my life in about 2019, 2020, when everything just, all the puzzle pieces just clicked. Like, if before 2019, my life was just a bit of a shambles and everything was all over the place. After 2019, everything just clicked into this perfect puzzle. And I did my meditation teacher training. I actually went sober for a year before that. 2019, I went sober for a year. I got really clear headed, wasn't drinking, wasn't doing any drugs or anything like that. And then after that, I had this opportunity to do my meditation teacher training. I did that. After that, I started teaching classes. I started doing workshops. I started coaching. After that, I started building a business, and then I just never stopped. Right. And that's been my life since then. Since then, that was just its defining point. But like, how did it happen? Yeah, I think you're probably right. It was just over the years, I had fostered my connection to that practice. I had been, using a whole bunch of these kind of practices in my own time. I was like, nurturing that, like,
Mm.
that discipline or that devotion. And then one day it just went click, and it just boom. Okay, now you're a meditation teacher. Like, now you're coaching people with, like, on how to reduce their stress and anxiety, because it's something that I had learned how to do, and something that I was really good at. Um, and now, yeah, I don't know. Like, I can't ever. I don't try to think too much into the future, but I can't see myself doing anything else for a very long time. But yeah,
Yeah.
man. So it wasn't something that I found, and I actually don't tell people that you find your purpose. I think your
Mm.
purpose is something that will consistently change, but it's always something that's already within you.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. That's inspiring for me as well, because I feel like sometimes mine's in a bit of a shambles every now and then. But like you said, you said the synchronicities, you see the puzzle pieces come together. But yeah, I think I agree with you. Purpose, it's I'm going to butcher the original meaning of it, but from what I've seen, purpose is actually to pursue something.
Mm,
There's some cool Latin word. I would sound really good right now if I
mm.
knew it. But it was the actual meaning for purpose was to pursue, and
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it's almost like kind of counterintuitive now, because you're like, this is the purpose, inferring that it's the final, the
Mm,
definite end. Like, that's it.
yeah,
However, it's actually in the pursuit of something that you
yeah,
feel purpose, which is
yeah.
like you kind of just highlighted it there, which is
I
interesting.
think, I think purpose is actually really simple. And I actually don't see my purpose as being a meditation teacher. There's a really quick little practice that we can do right now, take 2 minutes, where, yeah, I could help you understand your purpose more deeply if you wanted to. Just a little practice.
Yeah, why not? Let's go.
Cool. Close your eyes just for 2 seconds.
All right.
Take a deep breath and let go. And just ask yourself this simple question: what am I here to do with my life? And then
Mm.
open your eyes. What's the first thing that came to your mind?
Share knowledge.
Cool. That's your purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really believe that we overcomplicate things, and
I like it.
for me, my purpose is just to help people live well. When I ask myself that question, I just want to help people live well. And so for you, it's to share knowledge, and if you elaborate on it with an extra word or two, it might be sharing knowledge about a specific thing, right?
Mm.
Um, and that's it. And like, then you say, if you pursue that, you're good.
I appreciate that, and people listening. When we talk about doing the work, because I have this with my clients, I pretty much just sit there with them and ask them questions until they answer. And and like I find, like, even in that moment, like, when was the last time anyone sat there? I mean, and just asked those questions and sat with it, because it is uncomfortable as well. Like, you talk about, the neuroses of the mind, when you're constantly questioning, like, what do I want? Like, if you're in that state, something like that's uncomfortable, and I can imagine why people are distracting themselves with alcohol and drugs,
Mm.
or procrastination, or indulging in those behaviors that they know aren't serving them. So
So
yeah,
I
that's
think I think one of the big problems people have is So what I told you to do just then was to go with your first thought. What was the first thought that popped into your mind? Now,
Mm,
most people doubt themselves,
mm,
and it's because we have a first thought, but then we have a second thought, and then we have a third thought, and then we have a fourth thought, and all of a sudden we're overthinking. We've got too many thoughts. But the way I try to think is I trust my first thought,
mm,
and I really don't overthink things. Like I don't, say they say second guessing. What is second guessing? It's going with the second thought. Don't go with the
mm,
second thought. The first thought is the primary thought, and it's the closest thing to consciousness, right? Think about this, right? We have consciousness, we have a high level, we have consciousness and our awareness, right? And in our consciousness and in our awareness is this beautiful blank slate, very good connection to source or spirit, right? Through that connection to our consciousness or our awareness. There's nothing there. There's no thought. There's no feeling. There's no emotion. It's just a pure blank state of like nothingness. Very close to, you know, that higher level of intelligence. And it's very clean and there's nothing there. And then the next thing that happens from there is we create thought. So the first thought that comes into your mind is the closest thought to consciousness, right?
mm,
People call consciousness all sorts of things: consciousness, infinite intelligence, awareness, God, like, spirit, all these kinds of things.
mm,
The very first thought that you have is the closest one to God, infinite intelligence, consciousness, spirit. People say, trust your intuition. Trust that. Your intuition is your first thought. It's
mm,
your first instinct. So I think that people who struggle with anxiety and stress and depression and mental health issues, they're struggling because they're not going with their first thought. They're second guessing, they're self
mm.
doubting. Right? But we really just need to simplify it, to slow down and just trust the first thought. The first thought is usually always right.
I 100% agree.
Mm,
And I think, yeah, you going into you want to go into that like my background was chiropractic before this.
mm,
When you're talking to awareness, and is it perception first or is it belief first? Because belief shapes how you view it. I don't know. It gets really confusing, and I suppose when you're going into those frames where you are anxious and you are second guessing, and you then create self doubt and you don't have high self belief, and then you become susceptible to someone who is more certain.
mm.
And then I guess then you start having symptoms of, like I think you talk about it quite a lot, and well, which is why I want to go into your symptoms of your nervous system disruption or
Mm.
dysregulation. Um, let's sort of dive into a little bit of that. How is like the world we're living in now causing more of that dysregulation? How can we get back to, I would almost say that spirit, that Christ content? I think when you are neutral or balance, equal, yin and yang, when you're sympathetic, parasympathetics,
Mm.
in harmony. I think that's the moment where you are most clear as well.
Mhm.
Yeah, we'll share some of your thoughts on that, because I think you
Yeah,
say it quite well.
yeah. So, you know, like I said, I think the first thing that happens is awareness, right? So you're talking about the perception and beliefs and stuff like that you mentioned before. Here's how I think about it. If you didn't awareness must be the first thing, because if you weren't aware, you wouldn't be aware of your body. So you only know that you have a body because you're aware of your body,
Mm,
right? You only know that you have thoughts because you're aware of your thoughts. You only know that you have beliefs because you're aware of your beliefs. If you didn't have awareness, you wouldn't have a body, you wouldn't have thoughts, you wouldn't, like, you'd be dead essentially, right? So awareness is the first thing that happens. And our awareness is how we take in information from the environment. So that can be through our senses, right? So I see you, so therefore I'm aware of you, right? I feel this microphone, therefore I can aware of it, I can touch it, I can feel it, right? So the awareness is essentially the primary experience that we have, and it's how we receive our information from the environment. The next thing that happens is we start to create the thoughts and the stories, right, which affect how we perceive reality. So it goes awareness. That's how we essentially experience our environment and the information that we receive from our environment. And then the next thing is that we start to create thoughts and beliefs about what we're experiencing. So this is all like
Meaning.
we create meaning, right? And that's usually based off what's normal within our social environment as well. So the people that we're around, our parents, our teachers, our culture, that kind of stuff. And that's how we create our meaning of the world and our beliefs and our thoughts and stuff like that. Now, based off what we believe, we then have like our thoughts affect our nervous system through what's called epigenetic signaling. Now, you might be familiar with that. Epigenetics is like a new science, right? And epi means above, and obviously genetics is the gene. So they're saying that, our thoughts are essentially above our genes. So if you're, just one example of this would be, if you're thinking loving thoughts, your body is experiencing a loving mental environment. It's experiencing like a loving environment. Whereas if you're very angry, well, these are kind of emotions, but I'm just giving some examples. You're angry, your body is then experiencing an angry environment, right? So one example that I gave recently on Instagram, which you might be familiar with, is I gave this example of Robert Irwin or Steve Irwin. Let's use Steve Irwin because everyone knows who Steve Irwin is, right? Everyone should know who Robert Irwin is, but let's just use Steve Irwin. Let's say you're alone in a room with Steve Irwin, right? Now, Steve Irwin obviously is a crocodile hunter and he knows how to manage crocodiles. He has been doing so for his whole life. He's grown up managing crocodile, dealing with crocodiles. So his story, his mental story or his meaning about crocodiles is different than mine, for example. If it's just me and Steve Irwin in a room together and someone throws a crocodile into the room, I'm going to shit myself and probably try and get behind Steve Irwin, right? And I'm going to be like this guy, because I believe Steve Irwin can fight the crocodile, right? Because I've seen all the TV shows. And so I'm going to get behind Steve, but Steve's going to go and jump on the crocodile and try and tackle it, right? So we're both having different experiences. In my body, I'm experiencing, you're asking about the nervous system. In my body, I would have a heightened nervous system. I would be experiencing a lot of adrenaline and a lot of cortisol, which is making me feel scared, which is making me then take different action. I'm going to run behind Steve because I'm scared shitless and my nervous system's in fight or flight and I'm stressing out because there's a crocodile. And I believe crocodiles are dangerous and this thing's going to eat me. Now, Steve believes, man, crocodile, cool. I handle these things all the time. He's probably calm. He's relaxed. His nervous system is staying in this balanced state. He's not emotional and he just kind of, susses out the situation and then chooses what to do next in a very calm way. So that's just one example about how our thoughts and our beliefs affect our nervous system. So I believe that our thoughts and our beliefs affect the nervous system, but as well, it's a closely looped, a close feedback loop, because then we have our nervous system, we have our emotions, and this is where it's feeding back into itself. Because if we start to get anxious, we start to think more anxious thoughts. We start to get angry, we start to think more angry thoughts, and the nervous system is constantly just responding to that. So I really believe that it all starts with the mind, right? It all starts with our thoughts, and then the thoughts will send the signals down to the body. There are some trains of thought that say that, your body is aware as well. Your body is sometimes even more aware than your mind. Your senses are picking up things faster than your brain is. Like your nervous system, your nervous system in your body is kind of picking up things faster. I still all think that, like I said, it's a very close feedback loop. So I really think that if you change your beliefs, you're essentially going to be able to deal with things in a different way. So I really believe belief change is important for learning how to manage the nervous system. Another example, right, is let's say someone's had a traumatic event in their childhood and, they felt maybe they got abused, or maybe they had these experiences where they felt like they weren't good enough or they'd done something wrong. Usually what's happening is at an unconscious or subconscious level, they have developed a belief system about themselves. I'm not good enough. I do things wrong. If I do this, I'm going to get in trouble. And so then what's happening in the present day when they're feeling anxious or something's happened, they're feeling anxious, they feel not good enough. There's an unconscious story that's playing out that's saying you're not good enough. So it's an unconscious belief, which is creating the anxiety. So a lot of people I work with who have anxiety, they're basically just operating off unconscious programs that are telling them that they should be afraid of being in the world. Like there's an
Should be
unconscious belief system that says I'm not safe, or I'm scared, or I'm alone. And they might not be consciously thinking that, but they're living off an unconscious program that they're not aware of that's telling them that they're not safe. Hence, they are feeling anxiety. They're feeling a fight or flight, nervous system. They're feeling afraid. And it all comes from a deep unknown belief system or unconscious belief system that I'm not safe in the world.
And which is why you hear them say, "Why am I having these thoughts?" Isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, they're always like, "What if this goes wrong? What if that goes wrong?" Right? And it's like you're having all of these thoughts based off a deep unconscious belief system that the world's not safe. You can't trust anyone. If you do things wrong, it's going to be big consequences for you because maybe you did something wrong when you were a kid and your dad told you off or something like that. And now you think that if you do something wrong, the world's going to end.
Oh, I love that. And just to thanks for answering that about how it's
I know that was a
affecting.
long-winded answer, but I could talk about that forever.
No, it's good. No, it's all true. Like especially when epigenetics came out, for a long time it was just believed that we had a blueprint and that's it. You're destined, and you're never going to be anything more. Which that's kind of auto suggesting something in itself.
Yeah.
I think I want to go into back to your story when you were being purposeful, but following this new journey of yours, and you burnt the bridges. I think that stuck out to me a lot because a lot of people, I don't think they do have a plan B. I think they overthink, they don't trust themselves. Take me down the path of what is it like? What's required of you in order to burn the bridges? What's that process look like?
I think you've got to be radical. Like, this is why I don't think everyone's cut out for entrepreneurship. Like, or even, I try to teach people how to consciously create their reality. I really believe that you can create whatever, but you can't be the creator of your reality. That's one of the deep belief systems. However, I honestly don't think that everyone's cut out for that. And it's only because the reason why I say that, I want to empower people, but people need to be able to take risks. And you need to be able to be radical in your risk taking. And for a lot of people, that's just too scary. So for me, I just think I would consider myself a bit of an extremist. Like just a bit radical in my risk taking. I've done things that just a lot of people just wouldn't want to do. And so you make sacrifices that, sometimes don't make sense, right? Don't make logical sense. Like, if you're if you're living in this safety net, right, it becomes hard for you to take these crazy risks. However, I think that's the way. You need to be able to take big risks. And to take big risks, you need to trust yourself and you need to trust the world, that the world will catch you. And it can't be like a 90% trust. It needs to be like 100% trust, like faith, right? It needs to be faith. That's a spiritual concept, right?
Faith.
So I guess in a roundabout way, you're asking before how spirituality can help with business performance and stuff like that. I think when you develop faith, and it doesn't need to be like faith. I'm not religious in any sense. Like I don't think you have faith in God, but you need to have faith. Like you need to have that quality of faith that you can take a risk and it's going to be okay, right? If you don't have that, like, it becomes a very arduous, slow, draining process.
No, I love that because faith in itself, like the whole thing, like in philosophy, faith is like belief without evidence,
Yeah.
and to do that takes courage because you have to trust the whatever you're doing is going to work out.
Yeah.
And that's like you said, that doesn't not everyone's got that dog in them, as you'd say.
Yeah. I think everyone has the capacity to develop that. But yeah, like you've got to have that. You've got to have that risk tolerance, right? Like
Yeah.
it's a big thing. And working with people who have anxiety, like it's one of the biggest things they need to overcome because they don't have any risk tolerance. They're fucking scared as shit.
I
So
like that.
I'm,
That's really good. They
yeah,
like anxiety is a lack of risk or like
it's just well, you're fear,
intolerance
you're
to
afraid.
risk.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And,
Yeah, yeah,
not everyone has it. Like I work with some anxious guys who just pull the pin and just go, let's do it. And there are risk takers. But it's really about managing your fear, right?
Mm.
Um, yeah, I think like I said, everyone has the capacity to develop that. But it's just something you really want to work on, I think.
No, that's awesome, man. I don't know how much longer we've got left, but that pretty much did answer like all my questions I had for you. And I think especially at the end, I really enjoyed the way you framed that. And maybe this is my selfish need why I do this because I get to get knowledge from people.
Yeah.
That overlap of anxiety and an intolerance to risk, specifically in high achievers, it begs the question: what what's anxiety holding you back from achieving? Like how much more could you actually be doing if you did the work, as you say,
Mm,
and dive deep and uncover those beliefs or things that you have? It's
yeah.
a really good question to have, and I
Yeah.
think a lot of people do deal with it, and maybe it's like a feedback loop that they're
Mhm.
going through where they're anxious,
I
they're not
think,
taking action, and then
yeah.
you know,
I think anxiety keeps you back from a sense of being limitless. Like
yes,
you, I think most people have this deep knowing inside them that
mm,
they have like untapped potential. Uh,
yeah,
and they have that they can, live without limits. However, anxiety keeps them within limits and
mm,
it keeps them like bounded by their fear, right? So it's really about overcome. If you want to live a limitless life or a life with untapped potential, it's really you've got to get over your fears, right? And you've got
wow,
to get
that's
over your anxiety.
That's top G. I like it. That's good, man. Oh, I guess that pretty much ties it up, man. I really appreciate you coming on. If there's one final message you had about anxiety that could probably top that, that was really good. What would you say to the audience listening?
Yeah, I think as well, right? Like the name of the program that I run is called Anxiety to Alignment. And I really believe that, like I said before, we all have untapped potential. We all have the capacity to live a limitless life. And when we go from anxiety to alignment, we get to live that limitless life. Now, for some people, they might think, oh, limitless life means Ferraris and mansions and millions of dollars. But what I've learned in my time is that a limitless life does not need to be this fancy thing where you think it needs to be Ferraris and mansions and millions of dollars.
Mm,
I live a limitless life. And for me, that means I live close to the beach. I live within walking distance to the beach. I have a beautiful wife. We have a daughter. I run my own business. I get to take my time into my own hands. I have time freedom. I earn good money. I do work that's fulfilling for me and purposeful. And for me, that's what a limitless life looks like. It's not Ferraris and jet skis and mansions. And, I'll keep growing my business and maybe one day I'll have those things. But I don't feel like I need to have all of those things to live a limitless life. I have my freedom. I have my family. I have my health. And for me, that's a limitless life. So this is why it's important to come into alignment with who you really are. Because when you know who you really are, You're not going to try and just make achievements just for the sake of achievements. You're going to actually do what you really want to do with your life. And I think that's the most important message that I could ever give anyone.
Oh man, thank you. That was so well said. I really appreciate it. And where can everyone find you?
Yeah, mainly just on Instagram. It's Josh Holiday at It's Josh Holiday. I spend a lot of time on Instagram. Otherwise, if you wanted to suss out my website, it's www.mindlaunch.com.au. So yeah, those are the two places I hang out most.
Legend. Thanks so much for coming on, man. I appreciate it.
Cheers, Corey. Thanks, mate.